So we're trying to go back. Here we go. All right. So just again, welcome everybody, and move the bar over to the so I can. So as you all know, really, the holidays, for me anyway, it's really, and for most children, it's the most wonderful time of year, and it really should be for you as well. It's a time to be thankful, and you're usually surrounded by friends and family. You know, we at Genesis don't want it to be a time that you are, you know, sad or despondent or really regret. It really should be fun and filled with laughter and joy. But unfortunately, while divorces are pending or, you know, separation may be imminent, it can be very stressful for you and the children. But as a co-parent and as someone who wants to see him or herself as a co-parent, it's really super significant and important for the well-being of your children to follow some of these tips that I've outlined for you. So some of you may know, but you may not know, there have been numerous studies in the psychological and psychiatric communities showing the need for consistency. Children flourish most when there is consistency. And that means not only consistent with your behavior and that of the co-parent, but also with disciplining, but also with respect to family gatherings and traditions. It would be very traumatic for a child to all of a sudden be yanked from a tradition that they have known most of their young lives, just because the two of you are going through a divorce or separation. So if, for instance, there is a family event that your children have been used to attending year in and year out for the majority of their young lives, you should really do your utmost to try to still allow them to enjoy that event, even if it may be uncomfortable for you. And I'm not saying to give away your boundaries. I am saying, though, that your motivation and your intention should always be doing what's in the best interest for your children. You should prioritize their well-being. They didn't ask for the separation. They didn't ask for the divorce. You should really try your utmost to maintain not only your dignity, but also that of your children. They really, truly want to be a part of the family. And even though you are divorcing their other parent, it's still family to them. So you really need to emphasize the love for both parents. And even if you really have no use for that other parent, no matter what the situation is, whether there, you know, our tensions are high, you know, really extreme situations. And I'm not really, I need to let you know as a caveat, I'm not talking about an abusive situation or extreme criminal behavior. This is really more for those in the middle of the road that are still, you know, feeling the tensions and feeling the strife, but still need to do what's in the best interest of their children. Try to keep calm and try to take the high road and try to be as mature as possible. So that being said, when I use the word mature, you might say, well, how can I be mature when my ex or soon to be ex is really being a jerk or not mature, or it's their way or the highway? This is when you have to really gather up your inner strength, your inner confidence to know that you don't need their permission or their approval for you to behave in a way that you know to be right for your children. Try to be flexible, try to be reasonable, try not to feel like you have to control everything. I know sometimes people get triggered easily when emotions are high. But once again, try not to react. Try to really get your inner strength to do what you know is the right thing to do. Try to avoid complications. Try not to incite or inflame anything. And if you have a lawyer during this time period, hopefully you're using one of our lawyers here at Genesis, really ask their advice. Say, look, my soon-to-be ex or ex isn't allowing me to do what our children have done year in and year out because it's their parenting time, or they're just not being reasonable, or they're not being accommodating or flexible. Try to try to do things in a manner that doesn't raise too many emotions or trigger too much animosity, especially during this time period. And if you put something in writing, it's super important to note whatever is in writing, whatever is in text or emails, it's always important to know that those emails or text messages can be read by the courts, by the family courts, by a third party. Try to always be as professional and kind and respectful as you possibly can be. And I always like to say, even if you've lost respect for your co-parent, that doesn't mean you cannot be respectful of the situation. Remember, your children didn't ask to be in this situation. They didn't ask to be the child of the two of you. You got into this together, and you really have to work your way through it. And unfortunately, sometimes it happens where one of you continues to have to take things, take the high road, take things on the chin, and unfortunately, instead of thinking to yourself, why am I always the one giving in? Why am I always the one doing quote unquote what's right? Because of the love that you have for your children. You have to remember that you love your children way more than you despise your ex. So that is the motive, and that is what you're gaining as a result of this discord at this time. So it's important to create positive memories. And again, your ex's side of the family is still your children's family. So they perhaps still want to see that side of the family, and they still deserve to be able to do that. So, sometimes you have to be flexible, even if it's on your parenting time and there's a holiday tradition that they really want to be at. It's important to give and take. And perhaps you can swap parenting time with the co-parent. Perhaps it's in your best interest to allow your children to have that time. And even if you have to swap the times or be a little flexible, in the long run, your children, I do believe, will see it, will feel it, and will understand that what you're doing is really trying to do what's in their best interest all the time. So try to nurture them emotionally, nurture what they want. And, at this point in time, it has to be what's in their best interest. People often ask, how can I communicate successfully if my former partner is a jerk? Like, how do I get the inner strength to do that? How can I talk with them when they don't want to talk? How can I, be effective and peaceful if they're being a complete, what? Well, if you really cannot talk, then I urge you to try to write something, whether it's an email or a text message. But again, do it without emotion. And if you need a lawyer to help review it, to have a third set of eyes on it or a second set of eyes on it, then I strongly suggest that you do that. Try to take the emotion out of it, and remember to do what's in the best interest of your children. It's highly imperative that that is always at the forefront of your mind. You don't want to be vindictive. You don't want to be spiteful. You don't want to withhold parenting time because they're not helping you with Christmas gifts, or if they're not doing something for you, yet in your heart it's right for you to do that for them. For instance, if they say, no, absolutely not, I'm not letting you have, Johnny for your family's Christmas. But then Johnny wants to spend their family Christmas with them. Instead of being spiteful and vindictive, I still suggest and urge you to do what's in Johnny's best interest. It's very difficult to do that. But being a parent has always been about being unselfish with yourself and your time. And once again, it's doing what's in their best interest, not necessarily your best interest at this time. Over time, truly, it's one and the same, because what's in your best interest will eventually be what's in their best interest, and vice versa. I know that might sound a little confusing right now, but in the end, that's truly what it turns out to be. Sometimes, depending on the age of your children, you will be able to have these discussions with them in an age appropriate way. And it's really difficult in a very short webinar like this to be able to truly, teach you what that is. But I'm happy to sit down and talk with any one of you one-on-one to really help you understand what that means, because you always want to be age appropriate. You never want to lie to your children, but you don't want to tell them too much or not enough. So effective communication is super important, not only with your ex, but also with the children. So try to discuss scheduling conflicts ahead of time. If you know that something's coming up, it's always better to do it ahead of time instead of last minute. Nobody likes to be yanked from their plans at the last minute time. But also try to do it in a way that is a give and take. And if your ex isn't willing to be compromising over time, if you continue to be the one who is compromising, in almost every situation that I've ever encountered during my career, I have seen it where the other partner will eventually turn a corner. But more importantly, the children know it, and the children see it and sense it. And there's a really significant factor here that your children, they don't remember these tiny little incidences. They don't remember the dissonance necessarily, the specific fights or the specific instance where he wasn't or she wasn't allowed to do this or do that. They remember the feeling that they have when they are with you. So if they get a feeling of safety and they get a sense of that security when they're with you, that's what they will carry with them into adulthood. And the parent with whom they feel the safest is the one with whom they will want to spend their time. And that is true regardless of how many times you give up your quote unquote time with the children for their best interest, to be with their other parent. Time and time again, the studies have shown, in my own pragmatic approach that I see day in and day out with all of our clients, and in my own experience, it's the children who feel that safest. And going back to the first or second slide, the one who has that consistency, that discipline, that consistent approach to parenting, that consistent approach to being raised in that upbringing, that home, that's where they feel the safest. And then that's the home in which they want to be the most. So I hope that provides some sense of comfort if you feel like you're always giving up what you think is your time. It's also important to try to foster similar disciplining styles, similar upbringing methods, sharing responsibilities. If you have a very difficult co-parent, and I know one of our questions, which I'll get to in a little bit, I think it was by one of our participants. One of the questions was, how can you effectively co-parent if you have to do it in a parallel parenting style? And for those of you who don't know what that is, I'll explain that later. How can you do that with a highly toxic individual or someone who just doesn't want to co-parent? So the very nature of parallel parenting is that it's difficult, and it's only usually done with a difficult ex. And I'll explain what that is later. But in those situations, it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to share responsibilities. But typically, when you try to set aside your differences and let things go, it's very important to share those responsibilities with your co-parent, whether it's picking up to and from activities, or especially around the holidays, if there are different events at school or different little parties, or their activities with, the holiday time or schedules, or different family events. Even if the ex's side of the family has an event during your parenting time, it would be really lovely of you to drop them off at that event. Or if you're invited to stay for a little bit, if it's not too uncomfortable for you. If it's more uncomfortable for you to stay in that situation, let's just say with your ex's family, nobody wants to see you in a tension mode or, a highly uncomfortable position for you, because your children sense it. It's not healthy for you. You may just have to show up for a few minutes, say your hellos, then leave, and then come back and pick up your child. I'm not telling you that you need to make yourself be in a vulnerable situation longer than you need to be, but I'm suggesting that you do what's in their best interest. So if they're comfortable being there when you're not there, and it's too uncomfortable for you, drop them off, explain to your child that you need to run some errands, or you need to, do something for yourself, pick them up, and then they're super happy that you gave them that time on your parenting time schedule. Remember, parenting time is not for you, it's for your children. The courts make that abundantly clear. This is time that your children get to spend with you. So if they have activities and you don't want to take them there, well, unfortunately, that's something that the courts really disfavor. You have to take them because the activity is for them, not for you. So be very careful with what you have scheduled during your parenting time. And that's, again, another issue that we can discuss in more detail, depending on the types of issues that you're dealing with in your particular case. But another thing, especially around the holidays, if you celebrate gift giving, whether it's Christmas or Hanukkah or a number of religious holidays during this time, if you do give gifts, remember it's important to try to coordinate that. We often see where one of the parent, it's a competition, one of the parent wants to outdo the other parent with more fun gifts or more fun, they want to be the fun parent. They want to spend all sorts of money and take them on a, extravagant trip to Disney, or do whatever they want to do to win their love. Just remember what I said earlier. Children don't have to be won. Children need to feel safe. They need to feel heard. If you can't afford what your ex is trying to do, try not to be worried, try not to hold a grudge, try not to be resentful. Think of it more as, okay, my children are getting spoiled for the moment. I may not agree. I've talked with my ex about it. If you can try to limit the budget or limit what you're spending and they're both in agreement, great. If the two of you come to terms with what you're going to buy, who's going to buy it, are you going to share gifts, are you not? I think that's better. But if you really truly can't get along with your ex and they insist on being in competition with you, you have to get enough strength within you to know that what you're doing is right for your children, and that nobody can take away from you. So, I know it's a little difficult, but that's another one of those life challenges that we unfortunately have to deal with. Do any of you have any questions at this point? I don't know can we open the chat to see if there are any current questions?
Yeah, we can.
Can you share and chat at the same time? Oh, no questions. Anybody there, Kevin, on your side?
Oh,
No?
any questions here?
Oh, looks like someone,
yeah.
Kaylee. Okay.
That just means you're giving all the answers already.
If anyone wants to be heard too, we can unmute you, but if you just want to do a typed chat, we're happy to read your question.
Okay. Kaylee, I see that you've raised your hand. Give me just one moment. All right, Kaylee, can you hear us okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I just had one question in regards to trying to find an agreement on, say, gift giving. Is asking for an agreement on budgeting something too beyond to ask?
To beyond?
Like too beyond, like too space beyond. Is it too far away to ask for, or is that something that we can try to come to agreements on?
Well, Kaylee, I often say it's really dependent on your situation. Are you currently talking? Are you in what is the status right now? Do you mind sharing? Are you
Sure. Yeah. No, we have a legal agreement as far as parenting time. We do have communication that's limited through our family wizard.
Okay,
Um,
can I ask what state you're in?
Arizona.
Okay,
Um, so it's, it is, sometimes it is difficult to come to an agreement. However, as far as the whole, what I really related on was, the other side of the family will do and go the extra mile to win their love.
Mhm.
As how fun can I make it? How much can I give? How many gifts can I give? And that's something that I definitely resonate with, because over at my home, we definitely see things very differently. However, if there is a potential to come to an agreement on a budget, I guess where I'm seeking for clarification and satisfaction on is that something I can try to ask for to agree on a budget?
So it's very difficult, and courts will not impose any kind of restrictions on anyone outside of the two parents.
Mhm.
So it would be unreasonable for you to say to your ex, look, your family cannot spend thousands of dollars in our kids, right?
Sure.
It's not something that the courts would ever grant. However, if you and your ex had in the past only, while you were together, only spent X amount on the kids, you can then say, look, when we were together and when we were raising the children together, this is what we did. Is it possible for us to still maintain those standards?
Okay.
You can, the way I look at it, Kaylee, is you can ask really anything. There's no harm in asking. Sometimes it's the manner in which we ask questions that really can be offensive.
Of course.
Sometimes it's not necessarily what we say, it's how we say it. So
Mhm.
we can always approach things very delicately and carefully. And if you are comfortable asking, then perhaps you can, whether it's in writing or verbally, you can just say, hey, our children have everything that they could want. And this is we've always had placed more value on time together versus, stuff. So it's really how you approach it, I think, but nothing is off limits, really, when it comes to things like this, unless there is an agreement already in place. And
Okay.
typically, in all my years of doing this, I've never seen in a judgment, we can only spend X amount on Christmas or X amount on gifts or X amount here. That's very rare.
Mhm.
But if the two of you can come to an agreement, so I've seen parents where they share the gifts, or they, or the mom or the dad will buy all the gifts and then the other parent splits the cost, and some of the gifts here at this house, some of the gifts at that house. It really just depends on the two of you. And usually over time, emotions kind of get watered down and the tensions soften, and you're able to deal better with the other parent and come to better understandings and agreement. And if you can't, Kaylee, if that's really not in reach and not something that the other parent really wants to discuss with you, just remember to just try to be reasonable. And if your values are still your values, your children will know what you stand for. And like I said before, if you live by your values, it's really, children pick up on what you do, right? Not what you say. And so it's a doing kind of thing. And if you're not happy with the gifts or with the splurging, or I don't know what the word is, but the overindulgence, I should say, then just maybe in your mind, just say, you know what, my children are blessed. They're fortunate to have this. And I say the same answer with, if there's a third party involved, or a girlfriend or another family or step siblings or step families and all these other holidays now and all these other events, the way you could get around that high emotion with it is, my children have that much more love in their lives. So long as it's a healthy situation and there's no abuse or there's no reason to fear for their safety, you have to just continue to tell yourself, my children are flourishing. They're so lucky to have all this extra, you know, presence in their life, both with a CE and a TS, right? Presence and presence. They have all these extra gifts. They have all these extra people. They have all this extra love in their life. That's somehow will, that, you know, those things will help soften and help alleviate some of your own concerns, I think.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
It did, yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, I do see the next hand I see up is Steven. Steven, bear with me a moment. I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you. Steven, can you hear us?
I can.
Hi, Stephen.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. Just so you know that it does say that chat is disabled still. So I could have chatted this question, but it doesn't look like it's open. My question is more about the family time spent in the holidays. So at this point, I think it's clear I am not invited for Thanksgiving. All of my family, you know, my older family, my parents and stuff is all passed. So they don't have grandparents on my side. They only have grandparents on my ex-wife's side. So Thanksgiving is at Uncle Cody's this year, and I think it's pretty clear I'm not invited. So come Christmas time, when the holiday is on my day, I know that they're going to expect the children, but I don't feel like I'm comfortable in that situation anymore. I know it's for the kids, so how do I handle that?
So how many years have you been in this situation? All right, is it a recent divorce?
Yes, within the
Okay.
past 2 months. So this is fairly new for me.
And
We
how
were
old are-
married for 10 years. I have a 13-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
Okay. And so Thanksgiving is with their mom's side of the family this year?
She has them on our 5-5-2-2 schedule for Thanksgiving Day. It seems that it's been made pretty clear that she is taking them to Thanksgiving.
But with how
Can I ask
you
a-
typically
can I
have a
ask a
holiday
question?
schedule though, right? The
We do not.
holidays-
As of right now, the
Yeah.
temporary orders are 5-5-2-2. We haven't really gotten into a holiday schedule.
Okay, because holidays
Hmm.
take priority over the regular parenting time. So, okay. So, has your lawyer tried to split the day, like half and half, since it is a holiday?
I guess we haven't really even gotten into it with all of the other things that come up.
So what I would recommend is, so that you would have them Thursday and then you get them when? Friday?
Gosh, I would have to look at the calendar. Let's see.
That's okay. I
So
just was
she has
curious.
them from Wednesday till Sunday. So she has them Wednesday, Thursday, Friday over Thanksgiving all the way till Sunday.
So what my recommendation, Stephen, is just make sure you mark that in the calendar, that this holiday season, that this Thanksgiving, she had the entire weekend, so that when your lawyer goes to draft the actual judgment for the final parenting time schedule, that you start Thanksgiving holiday next year in the even years with the Thanksgiving parenting time, with the Thanksgiving schedule for that holiday. So,
Okay.
because if you don't write it down, you'll forget. I mean, we're human. If we don't write things down, we forget. And that was something else I wanted to talk about when we go back to the slideshow, or the slide presentation. It's really important to write things down, to remember things for yourself. And if you have a high conflict situation, keep a journal, because it's very difficult to refute a journal. It's very difficult to refute a calendar. If your ex says, I didn't do that, and you can go back and say, no, that's not true. You know, on Thanksgiving in 2023, you had the children from Thursday through Sunday, and I had no say in it. It's very difficult to refute that.
Right, because
Because you're
next
that
year
certain and
she
you're
would
that
have it as
solid.
well. Right, next year she has the same week.
Well, she won't, you cannot allow that to happen.
Okay.
It can't be a one-way situation. You don't have to be a jerk about it, but you can just say, look, you know, I understand this is what you want, but this is not fair. We're divorced, we're getting a divorce, and you have 50-50, so you have 50% of the holiday time. Whether you split the day and split the weekend, or it's every other year, that's up to you, but you can't just continue to take it, right? My presentation today isn't to tell you guys to just to take it. I'm telling you to be classy. I'm telling you to take the high road. I'm telling you to be elegant for your children and do what's in their best interest. But I'm not telling you to be a doormat, right? I'm not telling you to always take what they're telling you to do.
Right.
You can still do all the things I'm telling you to do and be respectful and be kind and courteous, but still maintain your dignity and your self-respect. So for Christmas, you're asking about whether you need to reciprocate. That is a very personal choice. And I said earlier, some of your children are older, some of them are the younger, and I don't know if your younger still believes in all the magic of the season, but they still want to be with their mother's side of the family. My recommendation would be to allow a limited time period, even if it's your holiday. I would sit down with your children and I would ask them. And I'm not saying to give up the entire day. I'm not saying to give up the entire week or weekend or whatever it is for the Christmas day. But I know you're hurt that you weren't invited to their Thanksgiving. But that doesn't mean, an eye for an eye. That doesn't mean you have to do that because they didn't. That tit for tat will get you nowhere. Not with her and not with your children. Does that make sense?
It does. And so it's not bad, like if I say I want them Friday, like the day after Thanksgiving. Even if it's her day, I can still say, I want a day in the holiday with them.
Just like I told Kaylee, you can ask for anything. You can co-parenting is about negotiating, about talking, about being reasonable, being compromising. You can ask her and just say, hey, I would really like to celebrate Thanksgiving with the kids too. Can I have them on Friday? Again, it's how you ask. It's the manner in which you talk and communicate over these issues. It's difficult for a lawyer to put and predict every contingency in a judgment.
Right.
We have to somehow rely on our clients too to be a little reasonable and to talk things through with their ex. But you also have to say, look, I don't know what your ex's name is, but so and so, it's very important that we try to do what's in their best interest. And I would really like to see the children. It's important that they spend time with me. I think to have our tradition too. If she says absolutely not, just say, okay, well then next year, just be prepared that I'm going to take the children Thursday through Sunday for our holiday parenting time. And leave it at that. There doesn't have to be any argument. There doesn't have to be any voices raised, but it's not all the other sides say. You get a say in it too. And remember, whatever you do now is setting a precedent. And that's why I say, especially during the divorce process, sometimes people just want to chuck it all out, leave it and not worry and not fight and not, they just want to give up. Well, don't set that precedent, because when you start getting healthier emotionally, you're going to want your time with them. So try not to, let your emotions run so high that you are, kind of cutting your nose to spite your face, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Hey,
Thank you.
Sabrina, can you hear me?
Yep,
Can I just add something to that, maybe?
of course. Oh yeah, of course.
I mentioned at the outset that we often, as attorneys, get lots of calls this time of year with the very type of dispute that Stephen just brought up. If you don't have a set parenting plan in place yet, which by the way, that makes life much easier. It really should make life easier because it's going to dictate who gets the kids for what holidays and what years. And it really is, at least in Arizona, it's a rotation. You get Thanksgiving this year, she gets Thanksgiving next year. But if you don't have that in place yet, I think that if your case is still pending, a lot of times I'll have clients call me and I'll just get on the phone with the other attorney and just have a phone call, because I think it's the case that most attorneys who practice in the area of family law understand this issue. And we've all had conversations with our own clients explaining the importance of really what we're talking about today, sharing the holidays, making sure the kids have a good experience with both parents, that they're going to be able to create memories with both parents. And a lot of times we're able to at least kind of put a band-aid on the situation and come up with sort of a temporary, share of a particular holiday if the orders aren't in place yet. But I would say that the sooner you can get a set holiday schedule, I think you will find that life will be a lot easier. So that was just one other thought that I had.
No, that's a great thought. And, and what we were saying before is, if you don't feel comfortable asking these questions, the question that was raised by Stephen or even of Kaylee earlier, your lawyer can also do the questions, the asking for you. A lot of it just really depends on your own situation and how afraid you are to really be more assertive. And it's important to start learning how to be a voice for yourself, because unfortunately we don't have lawyers helping us, post judgment usually. And so we have to learn how to stand in our own power, gain that confidence to learn how to communicate effectively with the other parent. That'll really help ease a lot of tensions really for the long term. So this seminar really in large part is our aim to try to empower each and every one of you to be a voice for yourself, to realize, your happiness and your joy and your fulfillment really lies within you to be able to do it for yourself. During this very difficult time, when emotions are high and you're very vulnerable and you don't feel like you can pull up the strength to do it, that's what we're here for. But we also, it's our job to really try to get you there so that you not only have a great representation during your divorce, but that you are that much stronger and that much more empowered to live a better life well after the final day of that divorce judgment being entered. So, and your kids will feel it too. Oftentimes we see and hear where kids are like, Mom or Dad, you guys seem so much happier. And, we don't want your situation to be where, oh my gosh, why did I even get divorced? I see my kids half the time. Tensions are worse. I don't get along with my ex. My life is miserable. We don't want that for you. But so often that's the case because people don't learn how to empower themselves to be able to get beyond all that emotional strife, to learn how to deal with their ex. So we want you to live a much better, more fruitful life moving forward. I'm going to get to more of the questions at the end, so that we only have a few more slides. And I just really want you to get through some of the rest of them, and then we'll answer all the other questions. So we talked about this a little bit with the other caller, with Stephen's questions. And the boundaries, it's very important to establish these boundaries. And so scheduling, it's not too early right now to talk about the holiday schedule, right? Thanksgiving's next week. And, if you celebrate Christmas, Christmas is coming up in a month or two, another month and a half, December, it's right here. So if it's not already established, talk about it. If there is a party that's outside of the, parenting time schedule that you really want your children to attend, talk about it. No question is really off limits unless you don't feel comfortable doing it, and then let your lawyer ask, or perhaps put it in writing in a very respectful way. But remember, try to do what's in your children's best interest and try to be reasonable and understanding of what your children truly want.
Oh my goodness, sorry about this, everyone.
Handling stress and anxiety. That is a big one. The holidays bring with them themselves and lots of stress. People are worried about the gifts and the entertaining and just all of it, right? There's a lot of holiday events to attend to, whether it's with work or family or the kids. Try to take a deep breath, really try to take care of yourselves. If you are not in a good state of mind, then you won't deal with the stress need, in an appropriate way, if you have more stress with the co-parent, if you have more issues, if you don't feel comfortable dealing with your co-parent, try to maybe have your lawyer or someone that is a strong advocate for you, talk to them, but again, try to be present in the moment. If you are so anxious that you can't be with your children in the moment when you're at a holiday event because your ex is there, well, then perhaps you shouldn't be at that event. If it, like I said before, if it's too stressful for you, if you really need to take that time away to heal, or if you can't be somewhere and your ex is there with their new partner or whatever, and it's just way too emotional, then excuse yourself from the situation, because your children will feel that tension. They'll feel that strife within you. They don't want to see you unhappy. They don't want to see you in that stressful situation. So don't attend if it's too hard for you to attend. But if it's something that you can do and, it's not that hard, then go with your children. If it's a school event, if it's a concert or something like that, don't miss out on your children's events if you can help it. But try to very, very much maintain that self-care, work out, meditate, go see a therapist, whatever it is that you need to do to keep yourself strong so that you can enjoy and be in the moment with your children. And just, one of our last slides is just embrace it. Try to remember what the holidays are all about. Again, if you feel like you're always the one taking the high road, well, then you are the more compassionate one. You are the more forgiving one. But it's about your children and it's about family. Try to set aside differences. And I often see a lot of times, and I'm sure Kevin and the team in Arizona can attest, the person who usually is the more compromising one during the marriage, the person who is the one who's usually doing more during the marriage, is usually the one doing more and the more compromising and the more giving after the marriage, right? During the divorce, prior to the divorce, and after the divorce, people are usually the same kind of person throughout. So if you are the one usually taking the high road, well, then chances are you were that way during the marriage or during the union as well. So unless you expect that other person to go through a major transformation, which sometimes they do, right? Sometimes people do change, but try to always remember you're doing what's in the best interest for your children. Try to let go of all that negative emotion, because it's really, that old saying, it's not the snake bite that kills you, it's the venom that seeps through your veins. If you continue to hold on to that bitterness and that resentment, your children will feel it. You will be worse off for it, and nothing will be gained. So this is a quote that I was kind of quoted in one of my articles that I've written, but I truly, truly believe this with my whole heart. Be your best self despite your circumstances. Your circumstances do not define you. You define you, right? And your children will sense that. So be your best self despite your circumstances, so you and your children can flourish and can experience the splendor of the season. For the best presents in life are those for which you must be present to receive. So on that, thank you so much for being a part of this seminar. And now we can answer the rest of your questions if any of you have some more.
All right, Tiffany, I do see that you have your hand raised, so give me just one moment. Are you able
Can
to
you
hear
hear me
us, Tiffany?
now?
Oh,
I
yeah.
can,
Yes, can you hear me?
Hi, Tiffany.
Awesome. Hello. So my circumstance, I feel, is a little bit different than some, perhaps, because my co-parent and I used to get along really well, and we both were very accommodating and putting our son first. But when he remarried, it's a different person that I'm co-parenting with.
That, just so you
How
know,
do-
Tiffany, that is very, very common.
Yeah, I'm sad to hear that. So my question is, does anyone have any experience, and this is not a diagnosis, mind you, but anyone have experience with a narcissist personality type? Because throughout their remarriage, I've worked to accommodate and always put our son first. And the thing that I've noticed happening is it has not gotten better over the past 4 or 5 years that they've been married. It's gotten worse and worse and worse. Every time I've tried to, hey, what can we do to put my son first? Or excuse me, I use the word our son, but anyway, so is there any insight onto dealing with people who have that particular, because that's the thing that they call me often, so I think it could be you call me this and it's
Objection?
actually
Yeah,
yeah. So
objection.
any
So-
ideas on that? Because is there anything differently you would do if you have that type of scenario?
So there are several books that are written on dealing with the narcissistic co-parent. We get a lot of when I say high conflict, usually one of the partners is either narcissist or it shows signs of a narcissistic tendencies. People throw that word around a lot lately, and I'm not saying you're doing this, Tiffany. I'm just
No,
saying a
but-
lot of people say narcissist, and it's really a selfish behavior. And unless you're on the spectrum, like there is truly a narcissistic personality disorder. And then you get to the real end of the spectrum, and it's sociopathic behavior. All sociopaths are narcissists, but not all narcissists are sociopaths. And then there's a lot. And yes, to answer your question, yes, we three here, my two attorneys and I here in Arizona, Michigan, I wish we were in Arizona. We deal with a lot of varying degrees of narcissism with the other side. That being said, the only thing I can say, Tiffany, right now is, do you have shared parenting? Is it joint right now?
Well, we have joint co-parenting with me having final say, and we've been divorced since 2017, I think.
But do you have equal parenting time, Tiffany?
Yes, equal parenting time, and we're
Do you have
going into
legal too?
No, I have final say.
For like the schooling and and all that with respect to
Yeah, for education and for medical, I have final say. They're saying they won't talk to me about anything that has to do with religion. But
wasn't that, don't you have the final say on that too?
nope, no, because when we divorced, my ex and I, we did do holidays together. I always gave him, during my time, I gave my son to him so that he could go do things with his dad's family.
And now he's not reciprocating.
Yeah, it was never even, it never even crossed my mind that we would fight, because we both adore our son. And so, and we'd always compromised and worked together. We parted as friends. But now with this scenario that it is, and so I'd definitely take some books, but I just, I wish I contacted my wonderful attorney when they first started not letting me talk with him, because they moved it, the bar has been moved so to the extreme now.
Well, Tiffany, it's okay that you didn't. I mean, you can still, if you did not do anything since the divorce and the custody arrangement, that doesn't mean you can't now.
Oh yeah, we're into almost our second year, I think, of on the court thing, because they took me to court trying to take away final say. They're wanting to have him. They're having fun, but I've tried to compromise and work with them, and it's just getting worse.
So you can't compromise with a narcissist, just so you know.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know.
So with it, depending on the severity of his narcissism, you cannot compromise. You have to have very firm boundaries. And the very fact that just because you're gonna have to let the past go, like the fact that, you were the one taking the high road, you were the one that allowed him to come and share your holiday time with your son, and you were the one that was being the better parent. The fact that now when he has been remarried and there's someone else in the picture, when typically narcissists will showboat for that other party.
Oh, no, because he's not the narcissist. She is.
Oh, she is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then the only thing that you can do is document for yourself, keep a journal of things that happen. How old is your son now?
He is turning 12 on December 2nd.
So he's getting older. He's able to express to you, and only if he comes out himself. Don't prod him. Don't you know, try not to instigate like questions or negativity. But if he says to you like, hey mom, I just don't like going over there, or hey, just say, hey, why? What's going on? And write a note to yourself. Don't try not to foster any negativity or disparagement or anything like that. But you can keep a journal of things that are going on. If they are not playing nice with the parenting time or with you, you keep a journal and you document things. And then if there is enough evidence for you to bring forward something with respect to, the safety or the well-being of your son and her care, well, then that's another story, right? But she cannot control how you as a mother parent your son.
Well,
So don't let her.
and yeah, and that's the challenge, because they took me to court a while ago, and but we've not been able to work together for him to be able to go to any of the family functions up in Utah, for example, because they won't let him call me when he arrives after driving, the 12 hours to get to the place. And just anyway.
Is that a violation of your order?
We didn't think to put in there that they must allow him to call me, because it's already in the template that you'll encourage and support and respect and communication for the other parent. I mean, that's already in there, but it's not specifically written. When you're traveling, you will have him call his mother.
No, I understand that, Tiffany, but I don't want to go into too much.
No, yeah.
But I do encourage you, if they are violating the terms of the order, then you file a motion to show cause. We call that here. I don't know if that's similar in Arizona, but you file a motion against them. You don't have to be on the receiving end of all this.
Okay, and that's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good luck.
Will you be posting somewhere the books that you would suggest reading? Because I will take advantage of that.
Yeah, I certainly can. We can
awesome. Thank you.
We can send out an email to the participants. I know that I think James has all the emails, so yeah, we're happy to.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And don't, you can still be someone who is a good example for her son without being a doormat.
Yeah, it makes me nervous because I have given and given and given. It makes me nervous to offer and to try and give, because I'm like, I feel like when I do, I'm just shooting myself in the foot every time, because they haven't gotten softer. They haven't gotten more him focused. It's still very much, let's beat me up. And I'm like, it's not good for my son when we're arguing and fighting like this. It's not good for him. So anyway, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tiffany. It looks like Mark, I see your hand is raised. Give me just one moment. Mark, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I've got a similar situation with a personality type, and a little bit more severe probably. And my question was kind of going off of what you were saying about, your child really picks up on the feeling that you give them, and that security or whatever that feeling is. So we don't have anything agreed upon yet. We use a family wizard. That's all we've pretty much agreed upon. But my question is, what does the court look at when, along that kind of lines and situation? We've got a 5-year-old, and she dominated his upbringing for about the first 4 years until we, I just had to kind of put it into the co-sleeping and the just treating him like an infant kind of thing. And that's really what our divorce is about. And now she's got an issue where he's acting out towards her. So he's hitting her, he's kicking her, they're having these arguments. She doesn't really know how to regulate, his emotions or talk about his feelings. That's just not something that people with NPD or BPD do. So now that they're having these issues, they're having these, kind of conflicts. And I, happen to see one of them you know, and it was about hitting and kicking her. And she immediately asked, does he hit and kick you? And my answer was, of course, no. And then we had a conference with his school about, you know, he's got a speech delay and development issue, which kind of comes from that whole situation in the first 4 years. But we had a conversation with his school, and they were, you know, and I asked questions, is he okay? Is he hitting or kicking? And the teacher was like, absolutely not, absolutely not. You know, and then she's able to kind of spin that into, well, I've talked to she immediately said to them, she's talking to her counselor, and it's because he's spending so much time with me now. And there's that separate, you know, like just complete kind of not even has to do with, you know, why he's really doing it. So I was just curious, what does the court look at? Like, what are they,
So-
at what point does that fruit of your labor of being a normal kind of decent person and parent, you know what I mean? And the kid feels that already, you know, I mean, he's acting out towards her and her alone.
So Mark, let me explain. The courts will only look at what you put in front of it. The court will not know unless you bring attention to it. And this kind of goes with the other caller, the other person that I was just talking to, and I can't remember, who was the last call, the last, Tiffany, sorry, Tiffany. And Mark, I know you mentioned BPD. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's borderline personality disorder. Has she been diagnosed with that?
Oh,
You
no,
threw it out
no.
You threw it out there with BPD and NPD. NPD is narcissistic personality disorder.
Right. No,
So-
and there's a sociopath element. No, she has not. I mean, we were together
Okay.
20 years. So
Okay.
the what I see is what I've seen and kind of what I've lived through and what I'm in recovery for, you know, and what my kind of therapy community has kind of, you know, diagnosed my situation with. And
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut, I have to cut you off a little bit because I want to get to other callers too, but I want to answer your
Sure.
question and with quality. So it's very important that you bring forward your concerns with a qualified attorney at Genesis who can handle this, because if your son is acting out in his mother's care, then he's not safe, okay? In Michigan, what we do is we would file a motion for a psychological evaluation. Now, usually when one party requests that, the other party then has to submit as well, because it's kind of like a quick, you know, if you're gonna do
Right.
it, then we need to do it, and it kind of disarms everybody, right?
Right. Okay.
If she is not willing to do that voluntarily, then you definitely will have a fight. Your lawyer can still bring forward the evidence to show that one is necessary. But again, the courts will not know what's going on unless you bring attention to it, right?
Okay.
So just like the other attendee, you have to bring attention to whatever it is that you want the court to be aware of. That being said, you better have darn good evidence to show your side of it, meaning documentation, counselors, school teachers, a calendar marking all the different behavior patterns that your son experiences when he's with her versus when he's with you, grades declining, you know, different difficulties with different certain aspects of his or her life, right? So not only, you can't just assert something without having all the evidence. And that's our job as your lawyers to show you, look, you can do it, but let's not be foolish about it. Let's have a strategic plan in place to get our ducks in a row, to then really target what you want, be really clear on your intention, and then go after it with zealous and with zest, you know, and zeal, I should say, and zest to really get it. So you don't want to just kind of like shoot like, you know, a ton of different things on the wall to see what sticks, because then they'll win.
Sure.
They'll win every
Yeah.
time. And that sounds like exactly what the narcissistic mom is doing in the other, you know, participant's case. You can't do that. You have to be very strategic, very focused, have a clear aim, and make sure you're prepared and your strategy is really, really, really good so that you can win every time.
Excellent. And I just want to tell the last
Serena,
person
can I
that
add something to that?
Raising Resilient Children is a great book. It's called Raising Resilient Children. I think it's like Margellis. I don't know the last name. Fajatis. I don't know. But Raising Resilient Children is what it's called.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Kevin, you were gonna say something?
Can I add something? Can I add something
Yeah,
quick
sure.
to that last question? You mentioned that in Michigan, you can go and potentially get a psychological evaluation. That's certainly something that can be available in Arizona as well. I don't know how easy they are to get in Michigan. Obviously, that would be your area to address. But in Arizona, you really do have to have some pretty good evidence to convince a family court judge to, to order a psychological evaluation. They don't hand them out like they do, for example, drug tests. Drug tests are quick and easy, right? I can order someone to go down and do a UA, and it's not going to cost them that much money, and I'm going to figure out what I need to know. Psychological evaluations are a lot more involved and a lot more expensive, and so I think it's really important, if you're thinking of going down this road, to have that discussion with your attorney, and just then determine if you're at the stage where it even makes sense to go down that road yet. Doesn't mean you won't get there. But I
Right.
do think that Sabrina's right. Being able to show the judge some of the evidence that you've talked about may go a long ways in helping a judge decide that's a good idea. But I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that psychological evaluations are a tool for courts to determine what's in the best interest of the child. They're not, at least in Arizona, they're not terribly routine. So just wanted to add that.
Thanks,
Thank-
Kevin. Does anybody else have any other questions besides, before I get to the ones that were emailed to us?
Let
No?
me see can I see if anyone's got some here before we go to those?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, doesn't
love
look
that-
like we
I
have
love
any
that the
live
attendees
questions,
are
so
there.
go ahead.
Yeah, are you guys all still awake? I know our one here is. Do you mind if we go for a little bit longer? I guess, okay. I know we were
Go
gonna end
ahead.
it at, okay.
I'm gonna do that.
Oh, we have one more.
Yep, it looks like,
Okay.
Eliza, I'm gonna go ahead.
Is it Elisa or Eliza? Elisa,
Are you able to
are you,
hear us?
can you hear us? No.
Fortunately, we can't hear you.
Okay, well, we have some open chats here. We have an anonymous attendee. I'm gonna read your question. I have very similar situations with behavior in my son. However, it is not dad, but grandma who allows the unacceptable behavior of hitting, kicking, acting out. The father of my child does not provide care, residency, or parenting time other than a couple hours a day. My son sleeps at grandma's. Grandma makes breakfast, lunch, and dinner, bathes my child, watches my child. She does not work. I am wondering if the courts consider this situation to give me, is there any more, more parenting time? A lot of it will depend on the situation that you have with the order. What is in your final order? And in Michigan, we have what we call a significant change of circumstance. So a judgment with respect to custody and parenting time cannot be changed unless we can prove that there has been a significant change of circumstance. So if the child's father is not, and depending on what your final order says, if your order says that, the father has to be with the father, the child can only be parenting time with the father. In Michigan, I know that courts are very reluctant to take time away from a parent if the parent is at work and the parent has to allow, have a third party or a babysitter or daycare to watch the child. But it's another for the child to be the father to be completely absent from the father, from the child's life. So it really depends on the circumstance. And if you see a declining behavior, it really depends on how long this has been going on. The kind of behavioral patterns in a negative way your child is exhibiting, a decline in his overall, mental or emotional well-being, physical well-being. If we can show with all this evidence that it's really not in your child's best interest to be in the hands of father because father's not really caring for the child, it's grandma, then you can show that. If father then says, no, I'll be with the child all the time, well, then there's not a whole lot you can do about that. But again, you have to prove the position. You have to prove that it's the grandmother who's watching the child, not the dad. You have to prove that, you know, the child is doing all this and acting out. So again, sometimes these are case by case bases, you know, that you have to look at really closely. You know, if you want, just have someone, depending on the state you're in, have one of our lawyers take a look at it and we can let you know. Did that help you? I hope. I don't know if they answered, but. Can you go through the, yeah, is that it now, guys? Yeah. So, I'm gonna go through some of the questions that, came to us via email and, for those of you who don't know, parallel parenting, I know I mentioned it a little bit ago, but, parallel parenting means that you guys just don't get along at all. You want to raise your child your way. They want to raise the same child their way. Never the twain shall meet. And you have no idea what's going on in the other person's household. And it's very, very unfortunate for the child. We don't recommend it. We don't like it. Courts don't like it. Usually it only exists when there's a high conflict individual on the other side, because that means you can't get along. They don't want to talk with you. It's basically like their feelings are so hurt that you guys divorced that they don't even want to look at you, talk to you, deal with you, and they won't, not even with the child involved. So you really have to take it upon yourself then to prove your own values, show your own values to your child, and you almost have to act as if you're raising this child on your own. You don't, you know, you cannot share in things when it comes to your child. And like I said, courts don't like it. And here in Michigan, what we try to do is if there is a truly toxic situation like that, we will try to get sole legal custody of the child so that one parent and one parent only has a final say with respect to the education, you know, medical issues, legal issues of that child's life. So try to always show the kind of parent you want to be with your child. Try to arm your children or child with, you know, your values. And again, your children see what you do. Try not to talk so much about anything with the other parent, really nothing at all. A child will be raised healthily and happily and be happy and be healthy. And studies have shown it time and time again, even if there's only one of you maintaining those standards, maintaining that level of health and emotional well-being and happiness and joy, they will be well and they will be stable, even if it's one parent doing that. So just remember to show with actions your values, your integrity, your character, the kind of traits that you want your child to have, the appropriate discipline that you want for them, and they will be okay. And they really truly will flourish in your care in that situation. The next question is, how do you effectively establish a holiday rotation schedule? I know we talked about this a lot during the seminar, the screen slide. But it's really talking about it. I know in Arizona, like Michigan, we have rotations, you know, year on, year off, especially if you have joint custody, which more and more courts are going toward, with, you know, the father and the mother, or the, you know, mother, father, having, you know, rotations, year on, year off. If you want a different rotation based upon your unique situations, well, then you have to negotiate. Think of your parenting time schedule, if you will, like any other type of a business deal. If you want something, you have to ask. You negotiate. It's like any other thing in life that you try to negotiate. If you don't ask, you'll never get. So if you want something, you have to let it be known that you want it. And sometimes you have to pick your battles. Sometimes it's a, you know, a thing that you have to compromise or give up something to get something else. But if you don't ask what you want, you will certainly never get it. So to effectively establish a holiday schedule in one that you want, remember that what you put in place now typically will be what lasts forever. So just don't be quiet because you don't want to, you know, be a pain for your lawyer, or you don't want to raise any eyebrows. If you don't ask, you're not going to get. And what we know to be true is that once that judgment's in place, it is extremely difficult to change the terms of a judgment. And courts only speak through their orders. So if you don't put it in place now, chances are you will not get it later. So especially if you're dealing with someone who's highly toxic and doesn't want anything to do with you, or if you think that they're going to get married or there's a third party involved, whenever there's third parties involved, it is even more difficult sometimes to change what you have in place. The next question, what should I do if I want my children to attend extended family activities during the holidays, but it isn't my parenting time? We talked about this a lot and with the underlying slides. Just ask, try to talk, cooperate, give up something for something else. And just try to do your best to really effectively communicate and take the high road. What is our Family Wizard and how should we use it as co-parents? Our Family Wizard is an app, it's a program that is designed to keep communications in writing less hostile. It is an app, and there are a lot of other ones now too, where courts can and attorneys can have access to it if given the, you know, given the permissions by the clients, to be able to see and view and monitor the communications between the parents. It's usually done when there are high tensions, when one parent can tend to be a little bit more verbally abusive or emotionally abusive. And it's a way to keep everybody in check. And using it as co-parents is effective when you need to reduce things in writing and you don't trust the other parent necessarily to do as they say what they do. So you want to make sure everything is in writing. Actually, we touched upon this during the underlying slides. Colin, I know you had a question, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, a lot of this was answered in the slides, so it was a really great presentation first and foremost. But what should I do if my kids don't want to spend the holidays with my ex?
So that's a great question. And we could probably put the screen, but this happens a lot. I don't know, Kevin, if you experience this in Arizona much, but we get it a lot. And
Yeah.
Depending on the
We
age
do.
of your children, the older children get, it's pretty widely known across the country that the older children are, the more they have their voice, the more courts will listen to what they want and the desires of their children, of the children. That being said, if there is no abuse, if there is no emotional hostility, and if you know for a fact your children are not being put in harm's way, then you truly have to encourage the child to abide by the court's order. They're not held to the court's order, you are. So if you are not following the court's order relative to parenting time, and it says that your child has to be with their other parent on this particular parenting time day or this particular holiday, you really truly have to do, unfortunately, what the order says. I know it's hard to see your child in despair, but you have to really encourage and foster the relationship with the other parent. If it's very extreme and they truly don't want to do it, then you need to somehow discuss that with the other parent, talk to them, maybe give up some of your parenting time. But unless that other parent is really truly on board, then chances are you still have to allow that child to go with that other parent. Because you don't want to be held in contempt of court for violating an order when you knew better.
Thank you, Sabrina.
You're welcome, Kyle. There's another question. What should I do if I'm not comfortable with my ex's new partner being present during the holidays? So we see this a lot when someone is really hurt that the other party has moved on, or if their ego is really hurt. You know, again, this is kind of what I said earlier, unless there is an abusive situation and you know that other person is not doing right for your child, or somehow physically or emotionally abusive to your child, then you really need to let your ex-partner be with their new partner with your child. If you have a rule in place, however, in the judgment that says no third party can be introduced to our child for X amount of time, or there can be no cohabitation for X amount of time, and you know for sure they're violating that, well, then you should bring forth a motion to enforce the terms of your judgment. Or if they're violating the terms of it, a motion for show cause. So it really depends on your situation. If it's just a normal situation and everything is okay, but you're just really kind of emotionally hurt, you have to look at it like, okay, my child is getting exposed to other people who will potentially love him or her, more stepkids, more stepsisters, more love, more fun, more enjoyment. And that's how you should look at it. Instead of something being negative for them, look at it like this is a positive, more things to enrich their life. And you just have to get over it, unfortunately. There's another question. I think it's our last one, unless we have someone. The last emailed question was, am I allowed to travel during the holidays? Well, again, it depends on your judgment and your agreement. It depends on if it's going to be in the country or out of the country. It depends on if it's a party country to the Hague Convention or not. There's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts about that. The Hague Convention is just basically an agreement where countries have it, where if there is like kidnapping among families or with one parent taking the child, it's very difficult to get a child back. We've had several of these very, very scary situations where a party will take a child to another country and we can't get that child back. Sometimes we have to get the country involved and sometimes we can't. So just be very careful. You should always know where your child is. If you share custody, you have a right to know where your child is. You have a right to know where your child's going. If you're afraid that someone's going to take the child out of the country, you have a right to make sure you know where that passport is. You have a right to know where they're going, the specific travel plans, the date and time that they're going and coming, where they're staying, where they are, all the details. Make sure you get that so that you know that your child is safe and you know your child will be returned when he or is supposed to be returned. So those are things that should be worked out with your lawyer. Definitely need to be worked out and put in an order in the court. Go ahead, Kevin.
Can I add something to that one?
Yeah, for sure.
I agree with what you said. Generally, at least the Arizona decree parenting plans that we have, they're going to usually have a travel provision in them that sort of state what the parents have to do if they're going to travel, what kind of notice they need to provide, things like that. So once your divorce is done or your parenting plan is in place, you'll probably have guidelines on travel. But the one thing I wanted to make clear that in Arizona, and this may be true in Michigan as well, if your case is pending, we actually have an injunction that prohibits parents from traveling out of state with the children unless they get permission from either the other parent or the court. So you actually cannot travel with the kids out of state while your case is pending, even for the holidays, unless you get either permission from the other parent or an order from the court. Once the case is over and you have your orders, that will dictate it. But I just wanted to make that clear as well.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for doing that. And again, it's I can't stress enough, and I know Kevin feels the same way. You truly cannot keep your head in the sand. And I cannot stress that enough. So many clients do. So many clients don't know, they don't understand, they don't take it upon themselves to really educate themselves and arm themselves and empower themselves with the knowledge that they need to move forward with their life, to really get the information they need to be the best parent, to be the best co-parent, to not live in fear, to not live in oppression or emotional anxiety. You really, really need to learn all you can with the system, with the legal system, with your case, to be able to know what is in your judgment. So many times we get a lot of post-judgment cases that the client will say, well, I didn't know. I didn't know what my lawyer was doing. I didn't know that this was in there. I didn't know that I agreed to this. I didn't, and at some point, yes, we understand you're going through a very emotional, trying time. And it is truly, in a way, very unfair of courts to say, you have to get this done within like a year. Here in Michigan, where it's very, we have to get through really, really tough situations. And I know in Arizona too, in a very short amount of time. You're trying to get yourself emotionally, healthy. You're trying to figure out, oh my gosh, what's my future going to be with my child? How can I agree to all these parenting time? I don't even know what this looks like, what that looks like. There's so much thrust upon you in the most vulnerable state that you could ever be in, probably some of the lowest, really emotional states of your life. And you're asked to decide these very, very difficult things, minutia sometimes, these details, and you need to rely on your lawyer. But sometimes too, you really need to get aware and clear on what you're agreeing to. Read the judgment, read the order, read everything before you agree to it. Don't always rely on your lawyer to know what's in your mind if you haven't expressed it. And then if you express it, make sure you understand what it is you're agreeing to. Because even though you're in a very highly emotional state, 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road, when you go back and you're like, oh my gosh, I would have never agreed to this had I known then what I know now. Well, make sure you know and when you're signing that judgment that you understand what you're signing, because it will be in place for a very, very, very long time. So that being said, I think we got through all the email questions.
Mhm.
Is there any other? There's one last. Is this the how to avoid
I saw-
in-person exchanges during holidays and in general, and father and sister on drop off and pick up? Or judge approved it with parents staying in the car. How to avoid in-person exchanges during holidays when father insisted on drop off and pick up every other Sunday at a public parking lot. Well, unless it's allowed that you can have a third person pick up your child, if it has to be the parents, if the judge ordered it, then you have to do it. There's no other way to avoid it. So I don't know if you have if you want to speak to this, Elisa, or if you just want your chat to speak for itself, but if a judge has already ordered that that's what you have to do, then unfortunately that's what you have to do. So I don't know if we can unmute her, but
I don't know, Elise, are you able to hear us?
do you want to talk at all or no?
No, unfortunately, it's not coming through.
Okay. I don't know, we've unmuted you, but we can't hear you at all. So, again, remember, it's super important to let your voice be heard. If you didn't want to do that, if you don't want to agree to that, and you ended up going to a motion hearing, you should express to your lawyer that it's too much for you. You can't be at this, exchange, and maybe a friend or a sister or a brother or someone that you trust and your child trusts can doing this. So we are going to try to have these webinars every other month, so 6 times a year moving forward. And if eventually maybe we'll try to get them monthly. It's tough when we have such busy court schedules too, but We like to provide as much value for our clients as possible. And if you liked this webinar, we hope that you can give us some great reviews on Google. We know that helps us to have other clients come find us. We really do care a lot about our clients. I know, Kevin mentioned in the beginning, that's really why our two firms, the Jensen Law Firm and Cronin Law Firm, came together. And we really care about our clients and the well-being of your family. It's not just, it's your family's still your family, even though you're divorcing and separating. And we really care a lot about the well-being of kids and of you and our clients. And we're always here for you. So please give us a like on Google. Hopefully you did, and hopefully you'll come back. Kevin, is there anything
I'll
else?
let Goldie know she got a shout out. She'll love that.
Who got a shout out?
Goldie,
Goldie.
Yeah.
Oh,
one of the attorneys here in our office. Yeah.
good.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for participating. Thank you, Sabrina, for that fantastic presentation. This can be a really incredible time of year, but it can be a tough time of year if you're going through a divorce or you're in a co-parenting situation, especially with another parent who's not easy to get along with. So I hope that some of the things that we've covered today are helpful. As always, I would encourage anyone who is either here in person or participated online to talk to their attorney, for individual specific advice about your particular situation. I think a lot of times in these settings, we're trying to give general information. It's hard to give case specific information. So it's really important to talk to your attorney. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and close out. And it sort of seems appropriate. And then we'll go ahead.
No, I was just gonna, I wanted to end to just say, just remember throughout this time, like Kevin said, it is a very difficult time period, but it can also be a very beautiful time. And while you are trying to do what's best for your children, remember to do also what's best for you. Because like I said earlier, what's best for you will ultimately be what's best for your children. So really remember to give yourself some grace. This is not an easy time, even in the best of circumstances, even when you get along, and even, when things are okay. It's still, divorce in general is not easy. A custody issue is not easy, but then heightened with all of the holidays and everything like that. Just show yourself some grace and patience. Try not to regret, try not to look backward, try to focus forward, and really try to do for yourself as well. And reach out to us at Genesis, Arizona, or here in Michigan. We're here for you. And I do offer some coaching as well. I know that's something that I've been doing more and more of. A lot of our clients are really wanting more hands-on coaching, which is outside of the realm of the legal side of things. But if you're going through a divorce in Arizona, but you need a little more coaching with respect to how you can get through certain situations, reach out. And I'm happy to help in that way as well. So that's really all I wanted to add, Kevin. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. And likewise here in Arizona, we're here to help out in any way that we can. Especially, well, not especially during this time of year, but we want people to have, one of the things we strive for is to help our clients have the best possible experience they can have, which sounds a little strange, but helping navigate this legal system of ours is not always easy, and that's what we're here to help you with. So with that, we'll go ahead and close out, and it seems appropriate to wish everybody a happy holiday and a
Yes.
great Thanksgiving coming up. So thank you very much, and take care.
And we will be sending out the emails to everybody with the answers, the typed out answers to the questions that were emailed, as well as the book list. And someone did have a question about a Facebook group, and I'm sure that's something that we can work on. That's a great idea.
It is a good idea. Thank you for that.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.